And welcome into the live stream. Thank you all for coming out. I sure do appreciate that. Welcome to the Latias Division draft stream. Ignore the screen. It is saying Latias Division. I am an idiot, and I forgot to fix that part. But this is the Latias Division, the non-upload division. We're going to start off... If you did not watch the Latias Division, we start off with Scarlet Bracket. We'll go in order of the draft order, and then we will jump right into the Violet Bracket. I'm not going to go too much details about each team. I'm going to talk about a little bit about them, but you'll see more about my opinions on them and where I think they need to fix things, where they not need to fix things when we get to the power rankings. That'll be going up on Sunday. So definitely come out for that video. Those will not be live streamed. Those will be premiered. So definitely come check those out. I truly appreciate that. So let's go ahead and get into this. Starting off, we got the Crater Haven Hurricanes. Their team consists of the Walking Wake, Torkoal, Sandy Shocks, Hatterene. Well, I'm blanking on words right now. Hatterene, Orthworm, Annihilate, Garganackle, Dunsparce, Lilligant, and Roaring Moon. Very interesting team. Having the sun up for the Roaring Moon, the Walking Wake, for make sure I have it up on the screen for you guys. Again, I'm a dumbass. Very interesting team. Like I said, able to have the sun up for the mods that had that photosynthesis, whatever that ability is called. I don't even know what the actual... What is that? Is it photosynthesis? Photosynthesis? What's it actually called? It is photosynthesis. Sorry, it was photosynthesis. So having that up for these mods is actually really good. Sort of like having Pinkirchen up for the other mods. So having this up though will allow Walking Wake to get a boost, allow Roaring Moon to get a boost, Sandy Shocks to get a boost. Lilligant's now able to run Chlorophyll, so that's really good. So we got good hazard setting, good defensive pressure, able to bounce back hazards with Hatterene. Overall, some really good mods there. Now, I will say, with the stream, you'll see that the when I go to the next slide, it's just going to zoom in for a second and go back to normal. I don't know why it does that, so just bear with me. So let's go ahead and get into the next one real quick. Well, it does not necessarily lose to EQ. Orthworm is immune to the ground type hits, so that does help. It definitely could use some better coverage for ground types, but Orthworm does have that immunity to ground, so that's at least something. We have immunity and a resistance, but definitely could use more ground coverage, that's for sure. Next up, we have the Area Zero Mysteries. They drafted Palafin, the Espathra, Tinglu, Palmot, Fortress, Florges, Amoonguss, Bombardier, Slaking, Saralege, and Knuckle Stack. So, it's really interesting. I should also mention, I did this for the Latios division, the Terror Captains. So, the Crater Haven Hurricanes had Sandy Shocks, Hatterene, and Lilligant as the Terror Captains. The Area Zero Mysteries have Amoonguss and Saralege as their Terror Captains. Very interesting team. I think having one of the better hazard setters and rapid spinner in Fortress is really nice. There's some decent coverage overall. I am actually interested to see how well Slaking does in this format. It still does have Truant, but it is have legendary stats overall, and not having as many powerful steel and rock types to wall, because a lot of the best ones are not in this game. Definitely interested to see how well that goes. Palmot does have Revival Blessing banned, so we don't have to worry about Revival Blessing at all. Yeah, Espathra is one of those things that it is a 14-point mod, so we did not allow it to be Terra. If it was 13, it most likely would have been his Terra Captain, but we specifically did not want Espathra being Terra, so we put her at 14, because Espathra being Terra is terrifying. But I think this team has some really good, unique bulk. Palafin is just a terrifying mon in general. So no like dedicated screen setters. Except maybe Flores might be able to set up a couple. Palmont might, being an electric type, might be able to set up like reflect and or light screen. But not having reflect stops is gonna somewhat be detrimental for Palafin, because getting those screens up would really help out setting up its like bulk ups and stuff like that. But we'll see how well the Area Zero Mysteries utilize this team going forward. Next up, we have the Atacama Tyrannitars. They drafted their mascot Tyranitar, Corviknight, Gengar, Noivern, Rotom Wash, Iron Moth, the Paldean Water Tauros, Brute Bonnet, Donphan, and Dedenne. Now, they did get sniped a little bit. They did want Houndstone, I believe, so they were not able to pick up the Houndstone Tyranitar core. That is very true, Franny. That's very true. So this is really interesting because, like that, I believe they got sniped Houndstone. For this, they really wanted that. I think their goal was to get Houndstone Tyranitar, and it just did not end up working that way. Their Terra types are Tyranitar, Noivern, and Dedenne. Dedenne was just there because they had a 1-point mon, and they had 1 point left, so they just gave it to Dedenne. But they had a plan. Unfortunately, their plan did not go as well as they hoped. But some really powerful mons that just work really well together. I think like Tyrantrum, Gengar, Noivern, Rotom Wash are really just going to be really either bulky and or offensive, depending on how you want to build it. Corviknight's one of the better defensive steel types in the game. Getting the Paldean, like, there is some duplicate typing here. We have 2 water types, 2 electric types. Their fairy type is really bad. The problem with picking your abuser first is sometimes Houndstone, like, no, I think when he drafted this, he wasn't sure, because Houndstone didn't go to round 2 till right before his pick. So he got sniped Houndstone the pick right before this. So I don't think he expected anyone to draft Houndstone. That's why he went Tyranitar and wanted to make sure he got that. And it's his mascot, so he wanted to make sure he got that round 1. I understand it. It was unfortunate that he got sniped right before his pick. But there's some duplicate typing. Like I said, the fairy type isn't great. Like, it would have been a great it was a great start to the Steel Dragon Fairy core, but the fairy is Dedenne. Firewater Grass core is really good, and Iron Moth, Rotom Wash, and Bonnet, I think they have a lot of really good synergies that can work well together. But unfortunate they weren't able to get Houndstone for this. I think they definitely would have had Gengar if they grabbed Houndstone, but that would have just changed up a bit. But next up, we have the Iowa Jolteons, who drafted Houndstone. They got Iron Valiant, Houndstone, Chi-Yu, Hippowdon, Kilowattrel, Dragalge, Arboliva, Quagsire, Lurantis, Dracloak, and King Gambit. Now, this is another one where, like, the Firewater Grass core is okay. I'm not a big fan of Arboliva, and I think Lurantis is not the best. And then the Fairy Dragon Steel core is... Okay, I was about to say, where's the Dragon type? Is very lackluster, because you have Great Fairy type in Iron Valiant. Dragalge is a decent Dragon type, but not amazing. And then King Gambit's pretty good. I don't think this is the best core that they could have gotten with for the Dragon Fairy Steel core. Their Terra Captains are Kilowattrel, Arboliva, and Lurantis. Both their Rat types are their Terra Captains. It all depends on how they play it out. I'm not the biggest fan of having Arboliva and Lurantis. I mean, I think picking up Lurantis, because I believe it does get Rapid Spin, if I'm not mistaken. Or gets Defog, one of the two. I have to double check. But I believe it does get a way of getting rid of Hazard, so that's helpful for this team. I do like the idea of having... they did grab Hippowdon round 4, so they guarantee they can run Houndstones with Last Respects in the sand and make it really benefit that. I think having Iron Valiant and Chi-Yu as 2 of your best offensive pressure mons, I think is really strong. Kilowattrel is one of those mons that I've tried it. Not the biggest fan of it. I think it's a little limiting. It reminds me a lot of Zapdos in its limiting moveset, but Zapdos just has better bulk, so it's able to utilize things a little better than Kilowatt Roll. I'm not saying Kilowatt Roll is a bad mon, I'm not the biggest fan of it after trying to draft it myself. I do like Quagsire now getting access to rocks and I believe spikes as well. I know you at least get stealth rocks now, so we do get hazard setting with Quagsire finally, so they're not reliant on just using Hippowdon or King Gambit as their rock setter. They have Quagsire for that. They get access to I know they access Toxic Spikes from the Dragalge, and it's a grounded poison type, so this is a really solid team. I think this is going to be a team to look out for overall. I think Dracloak was sort of probably unneeded, but you already have a Ghost type, you already have a Dragon type, but trying to utilize your points best you can. I'm just not the biggest fan of Arboliva and Lurantis. I'm not a big fan of Arboliva in general. I think I have a hatred for that mon, but I'm not going to sit here and say it's not bad. It's a bad mon, I just don't like it. Next up, we have the FC Monterreyqueza. Hopefully I'm not butchering that. I feel like I'm butchering it. But they have Chien-Pao, Goldango, Garchomp, Quavicle, Talonflame, Clodsire, Sylveon, Decidueye, and Indeedee Male. Their Terra Captains are Quaquaval and Sylveon. Now, this team really stacked up what they could do. I think they did a lot with this team. You panic picked Gengar after that. I should have picked up probably Zoroark. No, I completely understand that. I completely understand. I think this team is very strong. It hits hard. I think it is lacking a little bit on the bulk side because you're going to rely a lot on Clodsire and Sylveon as your bulk, which are two great bulky mons. I feel like a lot of times you might actually be bringing more defensive Garchomp to cover some of your weaknesses that you might need with those two. Or you're just going to bring Clodsire and Sylveon every single week. That is my biggest concern because you have great offensive power. I just worry that you're sort of limiting yourself on what can be defensive. And they're both great defensive mons, don't get me wrong, but you sometimes want to have a little bit more variety and be able to bring different things. Because there's no dark type on this team. I don't know what being outside of Chien-Pao. I always forget the thing. I always think the thing is ice fighting for some reason. It looks like an ice fighting type, but yeah, it is dark type. Never mind. But it's not a defensive dark type, and sometimes I like having a defensive dark type over a offensive one. But it is what it is. Great hazard stacking. I don't know. I had to double check to see if Decidueye gets defog in this gen. I'm not sure if it does or not, so that might be a little bit of an issue where you might not have really great hazard removal. I'm not a big fan of relying on Quavicle as your hazard removal because you have Aqua Step that allows you to get that +1 speed boost. You don't really need to rely on Rapid Spin as much. So there's some work that needs to be done on this team, but I don't think the team is bad. It's hit hard like a truck. And we see the Goldango and Garchomp pairing. We saw that twice in the Latios division, so we'll see how well it goes. Very interesting. Talonflame can be bulky, but you don't want to rely on it being being a bulky mon. You want it to be more of an offensive mon, but it just depends on how you want to build it. So it's gonna be interesting. Next up, we have the Houston Hands drafting Dragapult, Iron Treads, Slowking, Iron Hands, Salazzle, Dashboon, Woshen, Braviary, Ice-Q, Iron Treads, and Quillfish. I think this team is very, very strong. You have some really great offensive power in Dragapult and Iron Hands, Salazzle, Iron Treads, and then you have some really great bulk in Iron Thorns. Iron Treads is your defensive powerhouse with Slowking, with Woshen, Quillfish. Dashbun is very unique and very strong Pokemon. Be able to be a fire immunity, get your defense boost, and start body pressing things. Ice-Q is a mon. The Terra Captains for this team are Salazzle, Ice-Q, and Iron Thorns. They drafted Iron Thorns and Iron Hands on the exact same team. So it's a very interesting team. I'm glad they have a grounded poison type, two grounded poison types. I think my biggest concern right now is outside of Braviary, this team does not want to take a lot of earthquake hits. You have 2 poison types. You have electro types. You have steel types. You don't really have too many. You have 1 flying type that's really, and you have a grass type. Really, your only real ground resist and or immunities. This team really could have utilized something like Pincurchin to give it what's it called? What's what I'm looking for? To pop its ability for electric terrain. And I believe Pincurchin was still on the board for the Scarlet Bracket, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check. Pincurchin was still on the board. I feel like Pincurchin definitely would have helped. I would not consider Ice-Skew a Earthquake switch in, but that's just me. So, this is an interesting team. Not a bad team. I will talk more about it in the power rankings when that video goes live. So you all will see where I find things might need some work and stuff like that. Not a bad team, just I think needs a little bit of work. Next up, we got Experimenting W. We have Meowscarada, the Glamora, Hawlucha, Dondozo, Electros, Cyclizar, Mimikyu, Magnezone, Camerupt, Bronzong, and Murkrow. Another team that I feel like having a terrain setter would have been really nice. I would have really liked to see. Would really like to have seen Pincurchin on this team again for the Hawlucha. Just some sort of terrain setter for the Hawlucha so that it could have gotten a boost. But I think there is some duplicate typings, but a lot of unique stuff that happens. Like you have 2 electric types, but they sort of do different things. They don't share they don't share a weakness at all. You get 2 steel types, 2 dark types, 2 flying types. There's a lot of duplicate typings I'm not a big fan of just having duplicates of. The Fairy Dragon Steel Core is not amazing. There's no grass type for Fire Water Grass Core, so I think this needs a little work. Not a bad team. Having Glamora there to be able to get your hazards up relatively. You have a lot of hazard settings with Camerupt, Glamora, Meowscarada, and Bronzong all able to set up hazards for you. I think it's really good. Cyclizar with Shed Shell is really good for things like Magnezone with like Specs Magnezone getting behind a sub and just blasting something. Hawlucha with Bulk Up getting behind the sub is really good. Meowscarada getting behind the sub is pretty decent. Like there is some power here. Getting Mimikyu behind a sub, set up a Swords Dance. I think there's a lot of really good things on this team. This is a team that's really going to show what can the coach do to really utilize this team to the best of its ability. And I've never seen how, I don't know Experiment W's team coaching experience very well. Layton could be an amazing coach, he could be a mediocre coach, he could be a bad coach. I don't know. It's all just really going to depend on how they are as a team, as a coach, and how they utilize their Mons. Because there's some Mons here I really like in general. Like Bronzong is something to Mon that I generally draft every single time I do a draft league because it's so versatile what it can do. I love using Bronzong, one of my favorite steel types, one of my favorite psychic types. But enough about Experimenting W. Let's go on to the next team. We got West Texas Arcaniners. This, I believe, is going to finish off the Scarlet Bracket. We got Great Tusk, Greninja, Iron Leaves, Hisuian Zoroark, Salamence, Scizor, Espeon, Charizard, Toxtricity, and Lycanroc Dusk. I will say about this team, there is hardly any bulk on this team. Like Scizor can be bulky, Iron Tusk, Great Tusk can be bulky, Salamence can be bulky, but a lot of these mons are like you want to also use them as like offensive as well. I don't really know what to say with this thing. Like this was the wheel team, so like they got like Great Tusk and Greninja together. They got Iron Leaves and Hisuian Zoroark together. So this is a very interesting team. I just don't feel like there's enough bulks. This is going to be a very offensive team. Like there is mons that can be physically defensive, but it's not amazing because you sometimes want to use them as like offensive mods. Like Great Tusk and Scizor are great physically defensive, but you're also going to want to have matchups like, man, I could really use a strong steel type for them. Well, that means one of your defensive Pokemon is just out the window. It's not great. I wish they could have got some dedicated bulk just so that you had something, but like I like Scizor, I like Great Tusk, I like Greninja. Their Terra Captains are Iron Leaves and Scizor, so like you're really going to utilize Scizor probably a lot of times as either Terra Water, Terra Fire. Iron Leaves can be pretty much anything. We haven't seen Iron Leaves too much in Draft League formats quite yet. We've seen a little bit of it, but not too crazy, so it's going to be interesting to see how well this Mon is able to showcase itself as a Terra Captain in Draft League format. And I mean, you have some really good Mons though. Like you do have like I said, Salamence. You don't have a Fairy type. That's a bit of an issue in my opinion. I wish there was a Fire type on this team. I think the Fire Water Grass core is pretty decent, but there's no Fairy type. I would love to have seen like a bulky Fairy type on this team. Like honestly, one Mon I would have seen really well on this team was like a Wigglytuff. Would have been actually pretty huge on this team, but I don't believe Wigglytuff is in this gen. I don't think. I could be entirely wrong on that. If Wigglytuff is in this game, isn't in this gen. I think honestly Wigglytuff would have shined on this team personally, just because it would have given you a Fairy type, and then I think it would have paired really well with Hizumi and Zoroark, being immune to Fighting type. So and then being resistant to poison. Like I think those two would have been a really interesting pair together. But that's just me. Not a bad team. Just I think a lot of these teams need a little work. But let's go ahead and get into the Violet bracket. We got the Rompolions. They drafted Walking Wake, Tyranitar, Houndstone, Scizor, Gardevoir, Arboliva, Rotom Heat, Quagsire, Oricorio, Phalanx, and Swalot. I just think it is one of the better teams we've seen so far. I think this team is terrifying. You don't have Sun for the Walking Wake, but a lot of times you don't necessarily need it for the Walking Wake. But you do have like Houndstone in Sand. They were able to get that pair together. I think it's really good. A lot of times Gardevoir and Rotom are used as Trick Room setters. Not Trick Room setters, as Choice Scarf users, so I think that's really, really good. Phalanx, No Retreat is legal, so if you're able to rock off with a Phalanx, No Retreat I think is really good. I think Swalot is a very great low-tier poison type to be able to be a grounded poison, so it eats up those those toxic spikes, and just be a bulky nuisance. Arboliva is really strong. I hate them on, but it's really good. I think the cores are here. You have a great like sort of defensive Fire Water Grass core. If you do Quagsire order over the Roaring Wake, and they have a really strong like offensive Fairy Dragon Steel core and Scizor, Gardevoir, and the Walking Wake. I can't do words today. Scizor, Oricorio, and Phalanx are the Terra Captains. I think those are all really good Terra Captains. This team is very diverse. A lot of these Mons, what I personally like when I see draft teams is Mons that don't have. Not every single Mon needs to be a dedicated this. Like Tyranitar does not be a dedicated defensive Pokemon. It can be offensive with Choice Band or Dragon Dance. You have Houndstone can be defensive or offensive with Fluffy and or Sand Rush. Scizor can be offensive Swords Dance or can be a bulky like Defog knockoff user. Gardevoir can be a bulky special defensor or can be a Calm Mind setter or a Choice Scarf Moonblast set. Just offensive, just go in. Rotom Heat can be an offensive Choice Scarfer, a Choice Scarfer Trick user, a defensive Mon. So like, there's a lot of good variety in a lot of these things. So I actually like this team a lot. I'm excited to see what they can do with it. Next up, we got the Grounded Gibbles, probably my favorite logo out of both divisions. I love the Grounded Gibble logo because it's just a Gibble sitting on a couch. I love it. We got Iron Bundle, Great Tusk, Amoonguss, Cyclizar, Ceruledge, Palmont, Slowbro, Roaring Moon, Leafeon, and Dedenne. Why is everyone drafting Dedenne? I don't understand it. Everyone is drafted Dedenne. Ceruledge, Palmont, and Leafeon are the Terra Captains. This is the only team, I think, out of all four brackets in both divisions that drafted Iron Bundle round 1. I think that's just like so weird to me because Iron Bundle was talked about so much about being unbanning it this season, and it finally goes in draft 1. Everyone else was drafting like late rounds. This is actually a mon that actually got drafted round 1, like I thought it was going to be. The fact that Great Tusk came back around in round 2 was really interesting. I'm seeing also a difference between the Latias division, Latios, none of the coaches in the Latios division drafted Sarah but 2 coaches in the Latias division did. So I'm actually pretty excited to see like the differences in between the Latios and what they, between Armor Rouge and Sarah Ledge, which one they like more. Great defensive pivot mons, having a regenerated core with a Moongus and Slowbro. Roaring Moon, I'm surprised went so late, but really solid mon. Cyclozara able to get up for Great Tusk or Sarah Ledge behind the sub, even Iron Bundle behind the sub, Palma behind the sub, Leafeon behind the sub. There's a lot of really unique things here. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I got. I wish I had a better fairy type than the Dene, but you can only do so much. So, this is probably one of the better defensive cores I've seen so far in the Latias division, of having both Amoonguss and Slowbro as a regen core. I think that's really, really solid. So, next up, we got the Phoenix Incineroars. They drafted, look at that, Garchomp and Goldango for the 4th time. Palafin, Garchomp, Goldango, Sylveon, Iron Jugulus, Armor Rouge, Serena, Electros, Toxicroak, wow, and Zangoose. Now, there's another team where I feel like they're lacking on the bulk a little bit. Sylveon only being the real defensive mon on this team is not ideal, in my opinion. Like, a lot of the other mons that can be defensive can also be run more offensive than defensive, depending on the matchup. Sylveon's really going to be your dedicated defensive team. But the fact that we see Garchomp, Palafin, and Goldango all in the top 3, I don't know why every single team that drafted Garchomp drafted Goldango in all 4 brackets. Like, y'all are crazy. Did you all talk and plan this out? Like, what is happening? Every single bracket, both brackets in both divisions, drafted Garchomp and Goldango on the same team. Bro. But it is a very hyper offensive team. You have Iron Jugulus, which is a really good dark flying type. The Terra captains for this team are Iron Jugulus, Electros, and Zangoose. I think Zangoose being at 1 is very, very solid because it gets a lot of really solid move coverage. Yeah, in VGC, Frandy, Garchomp and Goldango pair perfectly well in VGC. We haven't really seen how well it pairs in singles yet. At least I haven't. We see Serena great for Rapid Spin. The one thing on this team that I wish they drafted more of is hazards. There's like no hazard on the team outside of Garchomp. That's really not good. With mons like Palafin and Goldango, Iron Jugulus, you want hazards up to break sashes, to dwindle things down, stuff like that. There are no hazards on this team really at all. And that's my biggest concern with this team, is just the lack of hazards. So it's going to be hard for like them to really utilize like setup sets to just come in and sweep at the end. More so than other teams, because they don't have hazards of people switching in on hazards, breaking focus dashes, breaking sturdies, stuff like that. I think that's going to be my biggest concern, because you're really only relying on Garchomp to be your hazard setter right now, and that's not great, because Garchomp should not just be relying solely on a hazard setter. That's not great. Garchomp deserves, like, Garchomp is too good not to be running as a choice scarf set 1 week, or a choice band set, or a setup mod. You're gonna run Garchomp 9 times out of 10 with rocks. That's not ideal. but you don't want to do that. Like, it gets repetitive and predictable, and people will say, "Oh, Garchomp's here. Okay, we're getting hazards up. Garchomp's here. They're getting hazards up." Like, there's no predictability. Like, there's no unpredictability in that, in my opinion. I think that's my only real concern with this team. But really offensive mons that are just going to come in and click a button and just start nuking things. So it's going to be really interesting to see how well they utilize this team. Next up, we got the Cardiff Komalas, a very unique team. They have Quavicle, Woshan, Screamtail, Cinderace, the Sandy Shocks, Dragonite, Revavroom, Masquerain, Torkoal, Vaporeon, and Lilligant. Very interesting team. Very interesting team. You have Torkoal to be able to set up the Sun for things like the Lilligant, for I believe the Screamtail, and the Sandy Shocks. But then you also have Masquerain there for Weps, which I think is really, really solid. Able to get Quavicle, I think. Still on the fence of whether it deserves to be a round 1 pickup or not, but I think it's really, really good. The Cinderace lasted all the way to round 4 for them. Dragonite to round 6. I'm surprised Torkoal lasted around 9. Quavicle and Sun is unfortunate, but I think you can utilize it. There are 3 Sun abusers on the team. What are you talking about, Brandy? There's 2 mons that benefit, like Screamtail, Sandy Shocks, I believe, gets the exact same ability. And you have Lilligant there. Sandy Shocks, you get Photosynthesis. So you have 2 mons of Photosynthesis, and you get a Corvidance Chlorophyll set. Like, Sun is very useful on this team. It's just Quavicle is a little... the Quavicle is a little unfortunate, but you do get Sticky Webs, which I think is really, really huge. Because this team is, outside of Cinderace, the team is not very fast. So able to set up Sticky Webs for things like Dragonite and Quavicle and stuff like that, to able to outspeed other mons after one setup or something like that. It can just run house on the opponent. I think this is the first team I'm really seeing that I feel like the Sticky Webs are really going to be truly beneficial, and they're really going to utilize that a lot. And Pyro Ball from Cinderace in the Sun is gonna hurt. Even water types, it's gonna hurt them. So I'm excited about this team. I think this is going to be a very unique team, and it's going to come down to prep. How well can they prep? If they can prep really well, this team can run through pretty much anything. So I'm excited to see what they can do with that. Next up, we got the Washington Why Nots with Iron Valiant, Chi-Yu, Dragapult, Corviknight, Clodsire, Rotom Wash, Lycanroc Dusk, Umbreon, Vigoroth, and the Lurantis. Now, I understand why getting Vigoroth and Lurantis low tier, because they're just low tier mons. I wish there was a better grass type on this team for the Fire, Water, Grass core. Lurantis isn't bad. Could be better. I think the Fairy Dragon Steel core is probably one of the best, if not the best, Fairy Dragon Steel core we've seen so far. And Iron Valiant, Dragapult, and Corviknight, I think that's insane. Corviknight and Clodsire and Rotom Wash as defensive mons to work well together are really, really strong. You have a great Cleric in Umbreon. Lycanroc Dusk, don't sleep on that mon. The thing can come in and just be a nuisance, a fast nuisance. Chi-Yu is a hard mon to switch in on. What I like about this team is it's allowing Iron Valiant to be a little more diverse. It doesn't always have to be physical every week, doesn't have to be special every week. It depends on what else you're bringing for this team, which I really like. I think that's really, really solid. There's not a whole lot here. I think the biggest concern for me is I wish there was more... No, I was trying to think of more hazard removal. I mean, they have a Defogger and a Rapid Spinner. I believe, does Lurantis get Defog or Rapid Spin? I don't remember. I don't remember if you get Rapid Spin or if you get Defog. I know you get something, but if it's Defog, you might not get it in this generation. I'm gonna double check that real quick because it's been bothering me. Because I was like, what do you have? What do you have? Latias. What do you have? Lawrence says defog. Okay. Okay. I can remember, because I know Serena had, Rapid Spinner, so I can remember which. I think that's going to be the only thing is I wish you had a Rapid Spinner over a Defogger, because you do have a lot of great hazards to set up. The only unfortunate thing is that you're just going to defog them away when you want to get rid of hazards on your side. But I think if you're able to get hazards up and have them stay up, things like Dragapult, Chi-Yu, and Lurantis, even like Rock Dust is just going to come in and just start nuking things, because Sashes will be gone, Sturdies will be gone. After a couple of turns, just after a long game of monsters switching in and out, those will be weakened down to about 55-60%, and then you can just come in and just sweep. So there's a lot of great potential with this team. I'm excited to see what you can do with it. I understand getting Vigoroth as a 1 point. I think it was only 1 point. I get it. Lurantis being 1 point is actually surprising. But your Terra Captains are Clodsire, Rotom Wash, and Lurantis. Again, I said this in the Latios draft. I'm not sure if I said it here. I'm not a big fan of defensive Terra typing, where you're using a defensive mon to Terra type into a different typing. I'm not the biggest fan of that. But based on what you drafted, you went very top heavy with 3 17-point mons. You didn't really have a lot of options. Like, I probably would have gone like just Rotom Wash, Lycanroc Dusk as your 2 Terra typings. That would have been fine. I'd rather Rotom Wash over Clodsire if I had to choose one or the other. Not the biggest fan of Clodsire being a Terra typing personally, but that's just me. Next up, we got the Hearth Home City Heracross. They have Greninja, Iron Moth, Iron Leaves, Florges, Orthworm, Noivern, Dusk, Donphan, almost said Dusclops, Donphan, Iron Hand, Bombardier, Dunsparce, and Mischievous. I think this team is very good. You have some great hazard setters in Bombardier, Earthworm, and Donphan. Could use probably a little bit more removal, but you do have one of the better Rapid Spinners in the game in Donphan, so it's not the end of the world. Then you have your top 3 are amazing offensive mons in Greninja, Iron Moth, and Iron Leaves. Noivern's really great for that. Iron Hands is really great for that. Dunsparce with Florges and Orthworm are great, just bulky defensive mons. I think Mischievous as a bulky ghost type with an Eviolite is going to actually be really solid. I actually like this team a lot. There's not like anything on this team where I'm like, man, this team is not good. Where this is not really good here. I think the only thing is maybe a little bit more hazard removal. But, like I said, you do have one of the better hazard removals in the game in Donphan. I actually like this team a lot. I think there's not a whole lot I can really say bad about this team. So, yeah. Let's move right along. Next up, we got the Grand Lake Garchomps. They have Meowscarada. Oh, I should probably mention the other team. Had Terra Captains of Iron Leaves, Noivern, and Mischievous. Grand Lake Garchomps have Meowscarada, Zoroark Hisuian, Slitherwing, Iron Treads, Slowking, Dragalge, Arcanine, Kilowattrel, the Dash Boon, Lycanroc, Midnight Form. I don't remember what it was called, and Beartic. I'm really happy to see Beartic. I wish it was Terra type, because Terra types are Dragalge, Arcanine, Dash Boon. Don't sleep on Terra type Beartic. I would have made that my Terra typing in a heartbeat. As someone who's used it in the past and utilized it very well, I am a huge fan of Terra Beartic. If you draft it with the right team. But some good hazard setting with Meowscarada, with Iron Treads, with Lycanroc, Dragalge with Toxic Spikes. You have a Grounded Poison type in Dragalge. I actually like the Fairy Dragon Steel Core in this. I think they're unique. They benefit each other relatively well. They cover each other's weaknesses very well, because the Iron Treads don't want to take a Fire type hit, but you have Dash Boon who's immune to it. The Fire Water Grass Core are really solid. Slowking is really bulky. Arcanine can be bulky or offensive. Meowscarada can be a utility mon or offensive. Slitherwing is a terrifying nuisance, just able to collect first impression and close combat. Hisuian Zoroark actually I think is really good with this team, because it's hard to really know when something's coming in and what's out there, so I think utilizing that to pair with some of these mods can be really solid. And then you have Chilling Reception with Slow King for the Bear Tick, which I think is really good. Be able to get that Slush Rush ability, you outspeed things. Lycanroc Dusk is very solid as it's a low tier rock type that can do some decent work. Not the best, but for a low tier pick, it's not the end of the world. Again, Kilowatt Roll, not the biggest fan. If this was in rain, I would have been a little like if the Slow King was Pelipper instead, I think I would have liked it a little bit better because then all this Kilowatt Roll would have had 100% accurate Hurricanes, 100% accurate Thunders. Might have been a tiny bit better in my opinion, but Chilling Reception is not bad with Bear Tick, so I'm not going to say it's an awful pickup, but I probably would have drafted Pelipper over Slow King, in my opinion, for this fight. Their Terra Captains are Dragalge, Arcanine, and Dash Boon. I'm actually curious to see how Dash Boon does as a Terra typing. That's actually one that I'm actually excited for. And last but not least, we have the bottom of the Violet bracket. We have Pallet Town Palafins. They have Chimpao, Annihilate, Garganacl, Grimmsnarl, Tinkatink, or is it Tinkatinkin? Tinkaton. Wow. Salazzle, Gastrodon, Staraptor, Appleton, Luxray, and Ditto. I think this is one of the more diverse teams, and teams that can do a crazy amount. My only concern is I wish they had better Dragon type than Appleton. However, I think having two of the best offensive type Pokemon, like two of the most offensive Pokemon, and your top two picks are insane, and Chimpao and Annihilate. You have great defensive pressure with Garganacl, Grimmsnarl, and Gastrodon. Appleton's really good defensively. You have an offensive powerhouse with Staraptor. Tinkaton is very hard to switch in on his Gigaton Hammer. You have screen potential with Grimmsnarl for things like the Annihilate to set up bulk up, stuff like that. Salazzle is a fast-hitting fairy killer for your two. Like, I think the one thing that people like might not realize is that your two top mons were Chimpao and Annihilate, and they don't want to deal with fairy types. And you have two amazing fairy killers in Tinkaton and Salazzle. So I'm actually really excited to see like how that pairs well together. Then behind screens are terrifying. Gastrodon getting hazards for you, so you don't have to rely on the Garganacl to set up your rocks for you. You do have Gastrodon that can use that as well this generation. Luxray is really good. Ditto is great to stop people from trying to set up on you. Garganacl, Salazzle, and Appleton are the Terra typings. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of defensive Terra typing, so I'm not a big fan of Garganacl or Appleton being Terra typing. However, I think Salazzle as a Terra type is insane. You can make this thing flying type or grass type, so you are no longer 4 times a week to the ground moves, which I think is really, really good, since you only have one way of not being immune to ground type, and that's in Staraptor. So it gives you a little more options. Like I said, I wish they had a little better of a dragon type. I think Appleton's a great grass type. Dragon typing, I wish they had something a little bit better to pair with their for the Fairy Dragon Steel Core. But yeah, I mean, I can't sleep on this team. This team is really, really solid as a wheel pick. They picked up some great value when it got to the end of that round or beginning of the next round, and really benefit from that. So that is our stream. I want to thank you all for coming out to the stream. Truly appreciate it. If you did like this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notify bell so you never miss out on any videos coming to the future of the channel. On Sunday, you guys will see my power rankings for the entire Latias division. So you'll see me talk a little bit more about how I feel about certain teams, benefits, negatives, why I put them at certain, why I put them at 16, why I put them at 1, depending on the team. So definitely come out and check that out. That'll be going up on Sunday. So definitely you want to make sure you hit that notify bell so you never miss out on when that video goes live. And next, that's pretty much it. Let me know in the comment section below who is your favorite team you saw out of all these teams. Who do you think has the better chances of winning? Who do you think is a underrated team that you think is going to be seen fall under the radar but will pick up some crucial wins and make a run for playoffs? So let me know. I'll thank you all for coming out to the live stream, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.